Hello, this is Jess Hay from Creative Cards to You. I'm glad you're here. Today, I do an art journal page, a card, and DIY specialty tapes. Quite the video lined up for you, which I'm excited to share. I took an art journaling class with Murray Polanco and am loosely following her design. I start off with a blend of milled lavender and Faded Jeans Distress Oxide inks, applying each with a different blending brush. I just apply it with a blending brush to a piece of art journal paper I cut out of my art journal. I go back and forth between the two to try and blend in the in-between spots so there's not a harsh line. Next, I took a stencil and applied Tattered Rose Distress Oxide ink in different places on the page. Then I applied splatters with Dina Wakley White acrylic spray paint, and I also made splatters with some Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink, where I just put it on my glass mat, put some water on it, mixed it up, and splattered it on the page. I then applied Tim Holtz translucent texture paste through a stencil with a spatula. I think I would do opaque next time, as that would give it some fun variation. I made sure to clean my stencil and my spatula very well. I added bits of a scripty stamp and archival black soot ink in different spots on the page. I then added some juniper berry distress spray stain and kind of spread it around with a paintbrush and dried it with a heat tool. Now to make the moon. I used a circle die and cut it out of Strathmore mixed media paper, and I used Hickory Smoke Distressed Oxide ink and Pumice Stone Distress Oxide reinker to just dab spots onto the moon in different places. I also would periodically swipe the panel in the ink on my craft mat and dry it with a heat tool in between applications. Now, if you watched my first video of this series, you know I am using papers from a paper clean box I got from China. Today, the paper I'm using is actually a sentiment I cut from one of the papers in the box. I glued it onto an inked panel I made with Mary's class. We were inspired just to use 2 inks and 1 stamp and create without fear. I like the background, and so I used that as the background for my sentiment strip, which says, "Open your mind and heart to new things." I thought this was so appropriate for my second art journal page, as I am new to art journaling. I add some more stamping and archival ink with this splatter stamp that kind of, I think, mimics stars, and also added some more of a scripty stamp in places. The girl I glued off camera is from Marimi's Small Arts Steampunk Personas. Got the idea from a YouTube video I watched from Marimi's Small Arts YouTube channel. To start, I put strips of this white craft writable packing tape I got from Amazon onto plastic packaging. I found out it was much easier to do this without plastic gloves on. I started by using Tim Holtz alcohol inks and just playing with the colors. The colors I kept going back to were mushroom, pebble, and smudge. I also wanted some pinks in there to match the journal page. And I'm just kind of experimenting all over with different color combinations as well as how I apply the ink. Sometimes I would do a whole line of alcohol inks down the strip of tape. Other times I would just put drops in places and use my blower tool or even just my finger to kind of move the ink around. For my second page of tape strips, I had some epic fails. I tried spraying distress spray on the tape, but it just beat it up on the surface. So I wiped it off, and then I tried using distress oxide ink pads. I first tried a blending brush, and that didn't work either. So I tried swiping the pad on the tape and kind of spreading it around with my finger, and that worked best, but it still wasn't that great. So I went back to the trusty old alcohol inks. I really enjoyed adding grungy parts to the corners and the edges of the tape pieces. Here are all the tape pieces I made. I then chose the pieces that I thought would work best with the journal page I made. I put double-sided adhesive on the back of the page, and I used strips of tape as accents to make it look as if I used them to adhere it to the journal page. I put glue in spots that needed it here and there. Here's the finished product. Now, since this video is so long, I will just show you quick clips of created processes from the card that I made to kind of match the journal page. I did the card really the same way that I did the journal page, but I used tattered rose instead of the other color of pink. I just love the sentiment I took from the same page as the other in the paper clean box. Do what you love and do it often. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.